An explosive lawsuit could shake up the hiring process for NFL coaches, general managers, and executives. Former Miami Dolphins head coach Brian Flores is suing the NFL and 3 teams, alleging discrimination in the hiring process of 2 teams and his firing from the Dolphins last month. In the lawsuit, Flores details interviews he had with the Denver Broncos and the New York Giants. He also details an accidental text message from Patriots head coach Bill Belichick. Let's bring in national correspondent Alex Miller, who's combed through the details of this lawsuit. Alex, what happened during those interviews that eventually led up to this lawsuit?
You know, it actually started, Lindsay, as you said, before the interview because of a text message that Brian Flores got from head coach Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots. Belichick texted him saying congratulations on getting the Giants head coaching job. But what happened actually was that Flores hadn't even gone in for the interview yet. And what happened was Belichick actually meant to text another coach with the same name who ended up getting this Giants coaching job. Now, Flores says that he felt humiliated when he went in for this interview. He felt like he was there to check a box. But this suit isn't just about the Giants. It also includes an interview back in 2019 that Flores had with the Denver Broncos, where he said he also felt like he was essentially checking a box in that interview as well because a white coach was hired. And the CEO and general manager at the time showed up to the interview about an hour late, and he said it looked as if they had been partying all night. And so between these two allegations, he's bringing this suit forward, saying that there's discrimination against these black coaches in the NFL, and that this is a bigger problem that he wants to see changed. The NFL is fighting this, and both teams are denying it.
Right. He's alleging that he was never taken seriously as a candidate for those positions. But Alex, these interviews are not the only complaint in the lawsuit. Flores also details interactions with the Dolphins owner on, quote, tanking games. So what can you tell us about that?
So in order to have a good draft pick, you have to have a bad season. And so basically what Flores is alleging is that Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, offered him $100,000 per loss, so per game, in 2019 in order to secure that better draft pick. Flores says that he couldn't look his own coaching staff and team in the eyes, and he didn't do that. And he was fired this past season after 2 winning seasons with the Dolphins. And so this is really where the issue and the questions come in. Why was he fired after having 2 winning seasons? So that, again, is also part of the lawsuit, but not necessarily part of the racial discrimination necessarily as well.
Right. Both extremely troubling allegations if proven true. All right, Alex Miller reporting for us from New York, and I want to get some more perspective on this lawsuit. We're going to bring in now Armando Salguero. He's a senior NFL writer for Outkick based in Miami. Thank you for joining us. As we just heard from our reporter, Flores' allegations that his interview with the Giants was just to check a box on the Rooney Rule. Before I ask you a question, for our viewers who may not know what that rule is, here is a quick summary. The Rooney Rule was established in 2003 and aims to increase the number of minorities hired in head coach, GM, and executive positions. The team must interview at least 2 diverse candidates from the Career Development Advisory Panel list and must conduct an in-person interview with at least 1 external minority candidate for any GM or head coaching interview. The team must also maintain complete records and provide them to the league upon commissioners' requests. Now, Armando, what is your take, knowing all this information, of course, on this allegation by Flores?
Well, first of all, Brian Flores was probably one of the better candidates in this hiring cycle throughout the NFL this year. And the idea that he was being interviewed to check a box, it's hard to imagine because the Giants didn't really need to interview him to check that box. They also interviewed Leslie Frazier, who is an African-American, who is the defensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. And so therefore, the idea that Brian Flores was the only one that satisfied the Rooney Rule for the Giants, that I'm not sure that that's correct. And the Giants have said that is absolutely not true, and we can prove it. So we'll see how that works out. The allegations beyond the Giants are the ones that are kind of troubling to me.
Yeah, so can you tell me a little bit more than what is troubling to you?
Well, so this lawsuit is obviously a racial discrimination lawsuit, And I get that Brian Flores, a black man, is believing that he is one of the better candidates, like we just mentioned, and that white guys are getting hired ahead of him. And so we'll see if he can prove his case in court. But the allegations he's making against the Miami Dolphins, which ironically are the team that actually did hire Brian Flores in 2019, are that the owner, Stephen Ross, offered to pay him $100,000 to lose games. And while that has nothing to do, in my estimation, with racial discrimination, it is definitely a problem for the NFL and for the Miami Dolphins as far as integrity of the game is concerned. The premise of the entire sporting community is you're going to play to win and I'm going to play to win, and we'll see who's better. When you have one of the parties losing on purpose, that just totally rips the fabric of what competition is all about.
And hearing all of this, in your opinion, does this seem like a probable thing that would be happening?
Well, I know that the Miami Dolphins intended to tank in 2019. Anyone with eyes saw the roster that they disassembled from the 2018 squad and then assembled for 2019. And that was basically a AAA team. I reported back in 2019 how Stephen Ross, in at least one interview with a head coach candidate that he was interviewing for the job, actively used the words tank and tanking in the interview. And so, and by the way, that person that he was interviewing is white. So he intended to tank whether his coach was white, black, avocado green, or pink. And that is a problem for the NFL.
And of course, if proven true, that would be an immense problem. But there also seems to be a larger issue here at play with gambling. The NFL has a partnership with 7 different gambling platforms. How could these be impacted if it comes to light that those allegations were true?
Well, when you have an NFL owner wanting to throw games, that is an issue that the NFL is going to frown upon. And obviously, if it is proven, and again, we're talking allegations outlined in a lawsuit, so let's be clear about that. If it is proven that Stephen Ross did the things that Brian Flores alleges, I would say to you that Stephen Ross's days as the owner of the Miami Dolphins are very much in jeopardy.
Now, Armando, I want to go back to what we were talking about initially. I know you said that you don't necessarily know if Flores' allegations would align with checking a box, like you said, but there still is no doubt that there are issues in the NFL when it comes to hiring minority coaches or general managers or executives. So what are your thoughts on who should be held responsible on making those changes if this lawsuit is not going to do that?
Well, here's the truth of it. Right now in this hiring cycle, no African-American coach has been hired yet. There are still 4 more jobs available in the NFL as a head coach. What I would tell you is it's a far divide from we think something is wrong to actually proving it in a court of law. It's going to be difficult for Brian Flores to prove that the New York Giants were, quote unquote, checking a box. It's going to be difficult for Brian Flores to make the argument in court before a jury that he interviewed with the Denver Broncos in 2019 and they weren't serious about hiring him because of racial discrimination, when in fact, the coach that the Broncos had previously was African American. And so how do you say that a team has no intention of being serious about hiring an African American when they just had an African American head coach?
But doesn't the sheer number or lack of minority coaches show you a problem? Do you think that there's talks within to fix that?
Again, we're talking about litigation in a court of law. So societal problems exist, and they exist in the NFL because they're part of society. There is a disparate number of black head coaches in the NFL right now, and that number is 1. When you have 70% of the player population being African American black, obviously that looks bad. That doesn't feel right. But it's, again, a big jump from it doesn't feel right and it looks bad to proving in court, in a court of law, in the American justice system, that wrongdoing has been done.
Right. All right, Armando Salguero, thank you so much for joining us and your insight today.